Adam Copeland, welcome to Second Nature, buddy. How you doing?
Oh, so good. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a journey to get to this podcast, and I'm so stoked to be here.
This is sort of a new series that we're doing. It's just extended conversations from TrailCon, people that we got to talk to on stage, but there's so much more to talk about. And this is like a little mini series on Second Nature of like, I have more questions to ask. Like I said to Adam before we started recording, I feel like I have even more questions now that I've had him on a panel.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just listening to the Amy Ingebrigtsen podcast as I was running this morning, Lucy. Great job with that one. But I was like, man, I still have never met Amy Ingebrigtsen myself. She came and spoke at our conference. She's been on Second Nature, and yet I haven't had an opportunity to interact with her. But she said something that I thought would actually be an interesting place to start here with Adam. Adam, I believe you come from sort of the entertainment industry. Of course, now you're working on Tantrums, a really exciting new sort of hydration and pack solution in trail running. But coming from the entertainment business, maybe a two-part question to start. What is the state of the entertainment business right now? Like where you live in Hollywood, is it in chaos? And also, one thing that Amy said was that she comes from a production background, which I think you do too. And she said she uses a lot of the production skills in her career as a professional athlete. So, two-part question. What's the state of the entertainment industry? And how are you utilizing your production skill set as you've been building Tantrums?
Well, first I want to say I just listened to that pod last night actually on my drive back from Hard Rock, and it was a great interview with her, and that was a great pod. Everyone should check that one out after this. The state of entertainment, I really focus on commercial is my sort of lane, and commercial is a lane where budgets are shrinking, tariffs are impacting business, and you're seeing a lot of people scared. I think a lot of people are figuring out how to take less money and go further. Um, Margins are being squeezed, and the first budget to go when you're squeezing margins is marketing, typically, personnel and marketing. So there's a lot fewer jobs, and I think a lot of people are scared. And it's what led to me starting Tantrums. Actually, I lost my job in 2023. And I rolled the dice on Tantrums. So I think a lot of people are looking for second careers, honestly, and to move out of advertising.
We talk about this a lot on the pod, that second mountain, right? Like you've sort of conquered the first thing, and then now what's the next thing you're going to do? Tantrum feels like a pretty good mountain to chase.
I think you talk about like, you how I use like my producer background to manage being in an entrepreneur and use it in my business. And I think for me, it's being a producer is managing a lot of people, but also a lot of stress. And I think that's the most important part of it. There's a lot of stress that happens when it's all on your shoulders. When you're working at an agency and there's a lot of people, but the project's yours. It's all the pressure's on your shoulders. And I think very much similar. You have to manage that effectively to be a good boss, a good husband. Like, you have to manage all of this pressure, and that's something I've been doing throughout my career, and I bring it to Tantrums daily. Hopefully, my wife would agree.
Yeah. So, Adam, your product, I would say, has captured like people are very interested in what you're building, and I think it has a unique look and feel to it. So maybe you could share a little bit about the origin story of the idea of Tantrums, and like especially coming up with kind of the name and the visual identity of it, because it does stand out in a way in what you could sort of call a fairly tired category. I feel like in the sport of trail running, there's obviously been a lot of brands who've made products for trail runners to carry their stuff, to carry their nutrition and hydration. And you've taken, I don't know, it feels like an interesting path to building Tantrums. So I'd love to have you just share a little bit of the origin story and how you're building the identity of it.
Yeah. So the origin story. Well, I bought a vest from I walked into a running store, my local running store, Run With Us, Pasadena, and I was like, I want to get this vest, and I named a vest that I'd done a little research online and decided that was my first vest. This is sort of as I just got into trail running about 4 years ago, and 5 years ago now. And the guy's like, "You don't want that vest, you want this vest," and pointed at this other brand vest, which I won't name that vest brand, either of them actually. And I got that vest and I hated that vest, and I ran with that vest for a year, and I just thought like, this is what the vest is, just not great products. This is just it. And then I bought a Solomon ADV 5, Advanced Skin 5, and I was like, "Oh, this is a great product. Like, this is cool." I mean, this is a very functional product. It's not cool, but it's very functional. And I remember on the first run, I was on a hike. I was on a hike with my friend, and I was wearing it. I was so excited. I wore it on a hike, and I was like, "This thing's awesome, but it doesn't look cool." And I thought to myself, like, I could do something with this. And that's really like the first like thought that like, hey, someone makes a good product, but there's room for improvement on this product, both from an aesthetic standpoint and from a functional standpoint. And I didn't really know what either of those were. I just knew that there was an opportunity, and it's the first time I'd recognized it. And then, it's something that just bounced around in my brain for a while, about 2 years, and then I quit. I got laid off from my job, and I was like, this idea that's been bouncing around my head, like, let's do it. And at the same time, one of my old art directors from an agency I worked with in New York was like, "Hey, are you like doing anything cool? Like, I just like have some free time. I'd love to work on something." And so I brought in my friend Josiel to be my partner, and he's like the creative director. And he came up with the visual identity, which is something we worked on together. And if you look at the word market, it sort of has like some curves in the T, like the inside of the T, one inside of the T. I guess it's right there. It gets like curved on the inside of the T a little bit, and that sort of, and on the M stroke doesn't come down in a straight angle on the bottom. It's supposed to be like streams, and sort of a reference to mountain streams is kind of the idea of the word mark. But the word tantrums, and people always ask me when like, "Hey, you do ultras, like, how do you run 100 miles?" That's a question. How do you run 100 miles? And for me, at least, the answer is really easy. It's slowly. And but the reality is, I think anyone that's done endurance knows that the big challenge in endurance is the mental battle. And tantrums really speaks to the mental battle. I call it the crying baby between your ears. So your brain tells you to stop, you're in pain, it hurts, you can't keep food down, like whatever it is. And, I think anyone that's done ultra knows it's like things can turn around. You just have to stay in it, and you just can't let your brain tell you to stop. And whether it be like sleep at an aid station for a few hours, or drink water because you can't eat, or whatever it is, or just put one foot in front of the other despite like having lost a toenail or have a blister or whatever it is, like you just keep moving forward despite the pain. And that's really what tantrums is about, from like an ethos, and the name comes from.
How did you come up with the actual name? I feel like a lot of people, we all kind of have like, oh, if I ever had a chance to start a business, it would be this idea. But then I think also like, not naming any names, but some people go and log on and buy all kinds of domains, you know, freetrail.com, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd be curious actually, like, how long did you have the name, and where did it come exactly? Because I love how it kind of ties into everything, but I also feel like some people have that stuff that they're just sitting on waiting for the right thing to pop up. Can you go a little bit deeper on the origin?
Yeah, so the hike where I was hiking with my friend Lauren, and when I first like was like, "Oh, like there's an opportunity in hydration for just like an evolution of this general style of a Solomon pack." In that hike, it was a 10-mile loop in the Santa Monica Mountains, and about halfway through, she sort of just like freaked out a little bit, and I was like, "I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. Like, I'm pissed off." And I was like, "You're kind of throwing a tantrum right now." And she's like, "No, I'm not, but that's a great name." And it kind of just like was like, it just like got put into the ether in that first hike, or like not the first hike, but the hike where like sort of the origin of this idea came from. So it always stuck with me. And then when I actually decided to kick around, like to kick off and do the brand, I really wanted to do a name that felt emotional and people didn't fully understand. I feel like the sport is full of brand names that are like nouns or proper nouns. It's like Patagonia or the North Face. Like it's just very like literal stuff that says like climbing or outdoors, and it doesn't evoke emotion. And I think endurance sports specifically, like emotion is part of it. Emotion is a big part of what we do. And it like, I don't know how many times like I've been on the verge of tears while running a race because I'm so low or so like something is just like touching me, and like, or how happy I get, like the emotional rise and falls of endurance and ultra specifically is pretty significant. And I feel like no one's tapping that with a name. And I just want something that like let people's like emotions like figure it out. Like they just hear tantrums, and a lot of people like call it tail tantrums or taper tantrums, or they talk about their kid, and everyone kind of takes it in their own way. And I'm happy to tell them this origin story and talk about it, but I really do like that everyone gets to sort of take it in their own way, where nobody takes Arc'teryx in their own way, or nobody
Yeah.
takes Patagonia in their own way.
I think it's a great brand, and that's kind of what I was getting at with my original question of like, it clearly is a functional product, but it also has a feeling to it, a coolness to it, I would say. And I think Tantrums does evoke emotion in a way that all of us who are trail runners really do understand. So as we've established, your career originally was in commercial production in the entertainment, or I guess in Southern California where you live. So I think the natural question is, what are some of the major learnings about transitioning into like a product creation entrepreneurial role for yourself? I mean, what are the steps of going from taking this idea to actually creating a physical product? Because obviously your work history was more like producing digital content, it sounds like.
Yeah. Um, for me, it's really about finding the right partners, and I think that is very similar to what production is, right? It's finding the right DP and finding the right editor, and understanding, and then as you finish that project, like understanding what you did wrong, and then evolving. And for me, I learned a new timeline and a new process and a new production instead of producing video and producing apparel and hydration solutions. But I think for me, a lot of things just lined up, and I think there is like a butterfly effect. Like one thing happens, then another thing happens, and you land in a situation that is monumentally important for the brand. And for me, I went to a pop up in New York City for this weird denim brand. I can't remember. It was called like Little Brother, Big Brother. I don't know. It was some like sort of small jean brand pop up, and I was talking to the owner about doing bag production. I had this idea, and this is like sort of before I really kicked it off, and I was still doing a little bit of fundraising. And I asked him, like, "Do you know anyone that does backpack and like could help me with a hydration solution?" And he's like, "Oh, I have the perfect guy for you. So let me find that information." And then he like walks away, and then I come back maybe 10 seconds. Did you go into that guy's information? He's like, "I couldn't find it, but call this guy." And I was like, "Wait, you had the perfect guy for me, but I shouldn't talk to that guy. I should talk to this guy." He's like, "Yep." It's like, okay. And the guy that he put me in touch with is this guy Tyler. And I think it just putting myself out there, asking questions, trying to learn about something I don't know. That's like the thing. Like just, hey, I don't understand this. Explain it to me. Hey, do you know somebody that can help, that like understands this and has done it before? And I think not being too self, like like uh just being humble enough to know what I don't know. I think that's a really being humble enough to know what I don't know, but trying to figure it out and understand it. I think I didn't understand anything. I didn't. I literally like if you'd asked me how to do a hydration pack 24 months ago, I'd be like, I have no idea. I'd be working in a production job, like with no concept of what it would take, where it would be made, and what the sort of materials that make it are, and how those play into the dynamics of bottle bounce. And now that's like all I want to talk about is mesh and textiles and factories. And I think what has worked for me in all of these positions, why I found it a success, is passion. And I think passion is the sort of the through line to success, at least for me. Um, I think it's like when I like wake up and I'm thinking about meshes, when I when I wake up and I'm thinking about is a race belt in my future? And if all I can think about is trail running and hydration solutions, like I feel like I'm in a place where I can't lose.
I think the passion is such an important part to drive you through sort of those little roadblocks that pop up in your way. I'd be curious to know if there's ever been a moment, especially in that sort of startup phase, where you hit a roadblock and you really thought like this, I don't know if this is going to happen. Did you have any moments of like extreme doubt, or you hit something that you felt was completely insurmountable, or do you think everything that you've run into so far, it was just like the enthusiasm got you over the roadblock?
Well, the first person I pitched the business to was my father, and he like passed on it. And like I think that was the first one where I was like, oh, okay. Well, my dad doesn't believe in this. I think there was some reasons like, he just didn't want to be involved in a business with me. I think that's like, was a smart choice. But things like that, especially on the fundraising lane, trying to figure out fundraising, and there was a lot of self-doubt in that. I built a deck, and then I was very scared to send that deck out and ask for money. I felt like that was a big hurdle, one of the biggest hurdles and hardest hurdles for me. Is like felt like I was swallowing eat my ego trying to like say I didn't have enough money to build a brand by myself, which is like, it's kind of crazy. Like, of course, like I don't have enough money to build a brand by myself. So some of those initial money question things, like that's the stuff that think I really questioned. Is this going to happen? Is this like, will anybody believe in this idea? Does anybody believe in me building a product that I've never built before? And I think the fact that I was able to fundraise and I did find money and I raised six figures to do this through friends and family, like no institutional. It's like everyone that was my friend 10 years ago is invested in this company. It's not like new money. Um, but I think that even just having my friends saying like, we believe in you was like the biggest sort of like boost to like, okay, maybe I can make this crazy idea come to life. But once the brain got started, it's been like I've been like go go go, and I can't let anything stop me.
Yeah. Tell us what you learned about raising money, Adam. I think this would be relatable to a lot of the founders in the audience. And yeah, when you're building physical products, it does take capital. So talk about the process of raising the funds that you did, and then how do you deploy it in a way that's responsible and effective to build your business in the early stage.
I had two like really interesting things happen early on. I had this friend, or I have this friend who like sort of was an advisor to me, and he's like, at this stage, at an angel stage, the only thing that matters is the jockey, and I'm the jockey, right? Like it's like the product is the horse, and I'm the jockey that's guiding it to success. And he's like, you have no product, so nobody's buying the product. The only thing they're buying is you. So you have to sell yourself as this person that's going to find success, as a successful human being that can problem solve and someone feels good about writing a check to. And I think that's really an important perspective on it. It's not how good is this idea? Oftentimes you're asking for money from people that have no idea about trail running or whatever your product is. Like they they can't be like, "Oh yeah." Just like you said, like hydration pack is a stale category. Like, yeah, I can write that in a deck and I can do a bunch of slides about all the different things and I can talk about it, but I think it goes back to passion. The passion for the category, being passionate about hydration, like came through in the way I talked about it, the way I could talk about it, and I could talk about the idea for the product. So I think it really comes down to one, you selling yourself as the jockey, and then two, really understanding like fundraising vehicles. So I use safes. I don't know if you're familiar with a safe, but
Talk us through it. I think this is important.
so a safe is a pretty it's pretty like in the startup world it's what a lot of people use, and basically since you don't have a product you have no evaluation because you can't sell anything, right? So you don't have some IP patent that gives you value. So your valuation is zero. So if you were going to fundraise with a zero evaluation, you're going to give away literally 1 cent would take your whole company. So you have to create a way to create value for your company, and using safes is a way. So you say that when I do a fundraise in the future at an evaluation of $2 million, you then have the opportunity to buy stock at that point of that fundraise, but you get a discount. So your $10,000 is worth $15,000 when I do a fundraise at $2 million. So basically, it's an IOU the ability to buy stock at, and you're able to give yourself an evaluation that allows you to fundraise where you can still hold on to your money.
Yeah.
There's a platform called Carta, and I would say Carta is the default way to raise money using safes, and they have, uh, you know, boilerplate contracts and stuff, and they have a support system. You can use them, and like they can help you through the whole thing. So Carta, use it.
Yeah. Yeah, so safe notes are, it's short for a simple agreement for future equity, but it is effectively like the IOU as you described. Quickly, before you get to Lucy's next question, share a little bit though about once you have that capital, how are you thinking about deploying it effectively? You know, is it go straight to product? Is it going towards building the brand? Walk us through,
Extra
how
guac
you end
at
up.
Chipotle.
Never extra guac at Chipotle. Um, I mean, everything went on into product for me. Like for me, product was like it. I'm in the marketing background, so I think that marketing is something that I want to like do bare bones, and I want to invest as little as possible. Startups generally don't put much money into marketing. There has to be a KPI on it and an ROI on it. There has to be an ROI on marketing, and it's very hard at this point to like see a way to do it. I do think at this my current point, awareness is my biggest problem since I have a product now. So I think it starts with having a product and then moves into an awareness problem. Um, so yeah. So I think in general, you start with just you dump all your money into product, and then you can always fundraise again once you have a product. Because once you have a product, then you have something of value. And so before you have, and obviously having a media platform has value, as you two, as both of you know. Um, but I think as you're starting a company around a product, you have to create that product first. So all money goes to product basically, and then that transitions from product into sales and awareness.
I don't want to skip over anything, so please stop me if there's a relevant point in between, getting the money and having that first round of products delivered. But I'm really curious about sort of the launch of Tantrums, and specifically, I think the first time we really got a chance to see what you're working on was at TRE. You had a booth there, and again, if there's anything in between getting that.
I think there's like some really significant, like the process of getting to launch to where I'm ready to place product in front of press and people at TRE. So I met with I being an entrepreneur means there's a lot of corners that you've never been around. So you walk down the street and you know what's on the street, and then you're like, you have to take a turn. You don't know what's around that turn, and you keep on making these turns, and you don't know what's around them, and you have to like talk to somebody on the street about what's around that corner before you make that corner, so at least you understand what's around that corner. But a lot of times the corners happen without you knowing them, and making a performance product is a very challenging concept in that performance moves, right? What performance is moves, like what when Dylan was at the top of the game, like what carbs you were supposed to take per hour has moved to what the like that's just a simple one that we're all aware of, but like everything moves, whether it be the fabrics we're using in shirts or cooling techniques or whatever it is. Performance is this thing that's like ever evolutionary, like since the beginning of running it just changes. So creating a performance product is one of those things where I have to create a vision for what performance looks like, and then I have to like wait until the vest gets close enough to that vision for me to be like, okay, go. Let me dump in 5 figures into production. And you're oftentimes you have to make compromises along the way. like for a big brand, they'll make a lot of financial changes. They'll be like, okay, like we can't use this fabric, we have to use that fabric because of this is 4 cents and this is 8 cents. So we, our margins change as we use the different things. And I think understanding and some of its timelines, like I have to press go so I have product for TRE, so then I will have it in February, which wasn't, I ended up not having it in February, like, but the choices you have to make, there's so many, and you have to be so uh, like knowledgeable in what textiles, like the aspects of textiles, whether it be the durability or the color washing of it or whatever. And there's so much to that that was so critical. And in the end, I had to press go at a point where like I'm unhappy with that place. And that doesn't mean it was the wrong choice, but I wasn't satisfied, but I still had to press go because at some point you have to close the door and you have to be like, version 1 is ready for launch and we're moving on to version 2, and like that's a scary point, and that's a point where you never know if you made the right choice. If I should have just waited for like one more fabric test, one more color test, like, and there's things with this product that I'm unhappy with, and then it doesn't mean I was wrong or right. And I think that's what's so challenging about making performance, is that it's a moving target and you have to stop at some point, and you have to realize that when you press stop, like performance keeps moving and you're not going to be in market for 6 months.
Well, they say that if you're not embarrassed by the first thing that you put out, you waited too long, and you have a great first product. And so no doubt
100%.
you're
That's like the
building on
most true thing I've ever heard, ever,
yeah.
ever, ever, ever.
Certainly true in my case too. I mean, we've gone through multiple names at this point with Free Trail, but anyway, building off this conversation about the launch too, one of the things, like the way I discovered you was when Anna Loudon wore the Tantrums pack at Western States 2024. So maybe you could just share a few words about getting the product in the hands of the right people to validate it, and maybe what some of the early feedback was, what some of the early wins were once you were seeding the product out.
Yeah, on the panel, I talked about this moment, like, Aaron asked about like when you get hit in the face, like what do you do? And for me, like getting hit in the face was like Anna Loudon like responding to a DM. So it was after her Canyon's third place, where she picked up MK's roll down ticket, and I just slid into her DMs and congratulated her on a great race and wished her luck at Western States. It was just like as simple as that. My Instagram at that point was all like trail inspo. Like I would just basically do like some bad version of Free Trail, where I'd be like, this race happened and here's some like fun pictures of it, and like just like a little recap of it. And I think I like, I'd just steal photography, or like, just tag the different photographers without like license. I was just like, whatever. I just need to be out here and start to talk to people. And I just sent that DM to Anna, and Anna responded like, oh, cool. Thanks so much. Like, what are you? And I was like, oh, I'm like a hydration startup thing. And at this point, I hadn't even gone to my first factory visit, which means I hadn't seen my first samples yet. I had tech packs, but no actual physical product. So Canyons is in April, and my first visit to the factory was in May, like 2 weeks later or so. And she was like, hey, well, if it works out, send me a vest, and if I like it, I'll run it at Western States. And I was like, what? like, oh my God, like you're gonna run Tantrums at Western? She's like, well, if I like it and it works, like, sure. She's at that point was completely unsponsored, and yeah, I put down my phone, picked up my phone, and calling. I was like, we need to get our vest ready we need an extra small, and it needs to be ready for the beginning of June, which means it needs to be in her hands like middle of May. So that was like maybe 8 weeks. I had probably about 8 weeks from, oh yeah, it's because it's Canyons. Canyons to Western's 8 weeks. So, I had 8 weeks to get from not having a product to having a product that Anna Loudon could put on. So we already had a trip planned to Vietnam. I went to Vietnam. We used same factory as Adidas Terrex, North Face, Raid, to name a few. Lululemon does some work in there as well. So working with them, and left that factory with a sample in my size, a large, but was like, hey, we need to get an extra small. And at that point, we had a lot of conversations about our sizing. A lot of companies are doing two sizes. Like you look at Arc'teryx does two sizes. Nathan Ultimate Direction do five sizes. Or I think that some of them do like women's five sizes and men's five sizes. So I think it's actually six sizes. Salomon does six sizes as well, down to extra small. Um, but it's expensive because all hydration packs are made in backpack factories, and backpacks aren't a size product. So it's not like t-shirts. So with a t-shirt, you'll get an MOQ for the t-shirt, and maybe it's like each color is its own MOQ, maybe its own sizes, but the sizes are all part of the MOQ. You get 500 MOQ, minimum order quantity, and like you get a bunch of different sizes. But with packs, hydration packs and backpacks, like it's a non-size product. So each size is its own product. So my MOQ is per size. So it's pretty, it's like a small thing, but when you have to order 500 to 1,000 per size, and you're looking at FOB costs over $20. I mean, simple math, you can see how expensive it is to like get into this category. So that saying, you can also pay penalties to go under MOQ. But besides that, I decided to do an extra small for Anna. Anna got that vest 2 weeks before Western States, and she said she loved it and she ran it. I think the real advancement and why Anna liked it is because I made a vest to her size. Like she sent me her sizes and I just measured it, and it's here's an Anna size. And I was like, I didn't normally you make your like one size your large and then you grade down. You're like, oh, like you an inch off of this and then that's your sizing. I made my large and I made Anna's, and then I just kind of like fit the rest into the middle. It's a little bit backwards way of doing a grading, but Anna was so instrumental in this brand, or is instrumental in the brand, that I didn't want to like change the sizing of that extra small, and I wanted to make sure that like she was always part of this brand. And yeah, and she ran it and she loved it. I think part of the initial idea about why this vest is unique and why it worked for Anna at that race is it really looks at performance. Like what is performance in hydration? And currently you look at the Salomon S Lab Ultra 10 as probably like the premier performance branded pack out there. It's a 10-liter bag that Francois developed with Salomon to race UTMB. UTMB is a race that many of us know has a large required kit. So you have overpants, tights, mid layer, rain jacket. And then you have a bunch of other stuff. But as far as bulky stuff, those are the kind of the bulky things that you need to require. And the pros do use things like pantyhose to like cut down the size, but it's still a significant size pack where you have a minimum weight on the mid layer. So you have this pack that most of the pros don't actually need access to because they don't. It's a temperate race. You don't need these things. You definitely don't need tights. You definitely don't need the overpants. Maybe you need a jacket if you hit a rainstorm. But I think that Francois probably just like needs to store the stuff without access to it. But for Western racing, or most of American racing, like you have non-required kits, as last week we saw with Hard Rock. Like, this is a race significantly more technical than UTMB with no required kit, zero required kit. Kyle Curtin started the race with no vest, belt only, basically. He had like built-in belt. So you can see that like there's just a different need for a performance racing most American races, and that isn't for a large pack. So what I did with a pack is really like slim down the backpack section of it. And then opened up the lower lumbar pocket, and that lower lumbar pocket becomes really accessible. So you have accessible storage, where the S Lab is like sort of non-accessible storage unless you really sort of have great arm mobility, shoulder mobility, which I have big shoulders. I have like no mobility back there. So that's really the bigger advance. One of the sort of critical advancements was more accessible, lower carrying storage. And really slimming down the backpack section because you don't really need it for most racing. But it's still, you can stick a jacket in there, more water. I saw Kyle actually put poles in there. He's using it as a pole quiver at the end of Hard Rock, which is the first time I'd seen that. But that was why specifically for Anna, I think it was like, oh, this is a great pack. And I think that's why people like Corinne Malcolm started to notice it. And Anna using it as a a billboard at Western States that sort of got seen by Debo. Anna had like a lot of, a great story around her with her win at Javelina earlier that year. So she got media coverage and the pack got media coverage, and it just was like a really unique thing that just came together, and like it just worked perfectly. I showed up. It's so interesting. I'm just going to spin this into the experience at Western States. Like I showed up to Western States last year and I didn't know anybody. Like I literally knew nobody. I'd never met Anna. I talked to Lindsay McDonald on Instagram, Dan Kurtz, and Anna Loudon. Those are like my three like Instagram pro runner friends. And I show up to the coffee bar, and Dan Kurtz is there, and I'm like, "Hey Dan, I'm Adam from Tantrums," and I talk to him, and I'm standing in line with Corinne Malcolm in front of me, and I'm like, "Hey, you talked about Tantrums," and like, and she's, "Oh, you're the," and then he introduced me to like Daniel Davis, and like, it just started happening. The web of just like friends and trail network just happened, and but I basically was like the new kid in school. I went to TrailCon and like stood at the wall and didn't talk to a single human being the whole time because I didn't know anyone. I introduced myself to Brendan at the end and was like, "Hey, I have this pack," and he's like, "Send me a sample, we'll talk." And I was like, "Okay." That was the only person I talked to at TrailCon. Fast forward 1 year, I'm sitting on a panel and exhibiting there, and it's so crazy to see what 1 year did with and Anna taking a chance on me like that. Like it's all Anna. Like in the end, Anna's the reason why I feel like I have success today. I mean, a lot of reasons, but like one of the big like sort of like butterfly like effect moments where things just changed.
It's incredible story, and you really can't connect the dots unless you go backward like that. You never would have guessed that sending a DM and congratulating somebody on a result would have turned into that. And then you start wondering like, what other seeds am I planting now? Also, shout out to Corinne Malcolm, who got an A+ on your Western States quiz this year. I think, I mean, I saw a couple other people take that test, and I was afraid to take it. There's no way I would have gotten anywhere close to that. So
Yeah, Hayden Hawks took it and failed, and he was a really great sport about it. Jim Walmsley like ran through TrailCon, and I was just like, "Jim, let me test you on your Western State knowledge." And he like looked at me and like looked at my setup and was like, "What?" And I just like kept running, and I was like, "Oh man, like Jim would have been done so well." But that was it was really fun. The TrailCon was fun. Good, great afternoon. I got fried. That back in my next year, like everyone was like, "Why don't you have a pop-up tent?" And I was like, everyone shows up like that. And I think going to TRE, I think we can jump back to TRE, and the idea is like for TRE, I wanted to show up in a way that was unexpected, and I feel like everyone at TRE shows up mostly in the most like in a Nike situation, like the most Nike retail situation you could possibly imagine. Like if Nike's like, what does Nike look like in a retail space? Like they bring it to TRE. What does Hoka look like in a retail space? Like we'll bring it to TRE. And everyone just kind of like, and obviously there's like an aesthetic, but you know, the way On showed up at TrailCon is pretty similar to the way they showed at TRE. It's like laboratory white, two-story, sciency, and it's basically they just like take their brand ethos and kind of push it onto like this mock retail space. Even Norda, like I think of Norda as a very challenger brand. Like their space was still look kind of like a shoe store, and they mostly look like shoe stores. And I was like, nobody knows I exist. My awareness is still like basically zero, except for some hardcore trail fans. Definitely like no retails no exist. Like how do I show up in a way that's going to make people stop and stare? And so the idea was like show up in a way that was unexpected, and so the idea was a room. I actually so the way this came from is I have a friend that has a tomato sauce company. It's called Monty's Tomato Sauce. Shout out Monty. Uh, Definitely link in the description to
it's in the
Monty.
it's in the show notes already. You're good.
BPC, all right, I love
And
it.
he did like, the consumer goods category is a really interesting category where there's small margins and it's very competitive. And so they're fighting for attention at these trade shows. And Monty is like this Italian dude from Long Island. He wears like these gold Cartiers. He's this amazing character. Monty's like 10 out of 10. But he did like a mob style office for his booth at the CPG. And I was just blown away. I've been to some of these CPG fairs before, and I was like, it's everyone just like tasting food. It's just like like cooktops and people like doing sampling, and it's like the most boring thing ever. And he had this room that was like had wood paneling and the big desk, and he was sitting there with his his feet kicked up on the desk, like eating some pasta. And I was like, that's the visual I need for tantrums. And so that idea of doing a room came from Monty's tomato sauce. And yeah, and I wanted to do something. Obviously, he's like an Italian from Long Island, so he did a mob, but and tomato red sauce. And I was like, what makes sense for me? And I think that for me, high school is this critical place where we start to like our parents stop being our friends and start being our enemies, and our friends become sort of our parents, and where we learn stuff from, and where like how we identify who we are and who we sit with at the lunch table, right? Like that's like critical to like who we are as individuals. And obviously it evolves as you move through college and your workforce, but it's really the first time you get to pick your own persona and decide your clothes and decide like all these things. And I think so high school is like a really critical time. And I think for the brand, I felt like this was kind of like we were showing up to school for the first day, and like we're the new kids. And I don't know. I just like there's this like interesting like place with it. I get to like meet my heroes, right? Meeting all these pros, like and all these people. Like it's like yeah, I'm a fan of ultra trail, like as a sport, not just it's interesting to divide. There's people that like to just run ultra trail, and there's people that like to run ultra trail and like know who won Hard Rock, right? It's like there's a split in there. And so like meeting all these pros and like working with them, like you put the picture of your pros like on the wall above your bed. You put some like stuff under the bed that you like want to hide from your parents. And I just thought like a 90s stoners like high school bedroom from the 90s like just felt like a cool, unique way to show up as a brand. And it's interesting because I was surrounded by people. Like the person next to me made medals, like it was the medal maker for the races, and then the person to the other side of me made hangers, so like custom hangers for like the race shops. And then across from me was a Spanish shoe company that I've never heard of called Atom, ATOM. And and I was like, I wonder how this is gonna go. Because I was kind of like in the cuts of TRE. I booked TRE late because I wasn't gonna sure if I had samples. So I signed in July or whatever. Um and I had I had a lot of people coming to my booth and wondering what was going on, and they didn't have that many people. And so I think it worked out pretty well.
So interesting. So yeah, I mean, showing up in a way that feels different is a good way to stand out and to help with that recognition, which I think for you, you've already said a couple of times, is going to be kind of the major challenge of this next phase of building the brand. So maybe talk about how you do, aside from appearing on the Second Nature podcast and having, novel trade show activations. How else are you planning to kind of get the word about tantrums out? What are the key barriers to like having, the tantrums brand in the brain of trail runners around the world?
For me, I mean, I think you're aware that like gifting has been like extremely important to me. I think, gifting is like um when you gift somebody a product as a brand, oftentimes like there's like it's like there's a negativity around it. I think people like when it's like, oh, like so and so sent me this thing and I don't know, I don't like whatever. It's like soap or something. You're like, you start getting this stuff, and there's a sort of a concept of like overconsumption, and you're like gifting, and they're giving me this thing and they expect something. And but I think within performance and within trail, like it's not a sport where they're like people like have these big followings, and there's not a lot of free stuff being thrown around to pro trail runners or trail influencers. So I think for me it's been like just getting my product in the hands of the fastest people I know, or the people with the largest like trail specific networks. And I ran into you at UTMB, Dylan, and gave you my low key banger duffel bag. It was the only
Right.
product I had to hand out at that point. But I've leaned heavily in on just gifting and just giving people stuff. And oftentimes I'll run into pros with like a Hoka. I was with a Hoka pro over the weekend. Well, I hiked up Handy's at Hard Rock, and we were talking about packs, and I was like, "Hey, you want my pack?" And they were like, I can't run it. Hoka, blah blah blah." And I was like, "No, no, you can just have it. Like, just take it. And like, if you don't like it or you can't run it or whatever, like, give it to somebody else." And I think, and I don't know what the KPI ROI. I don't know what the ROI on just handing out vests to every person that I get in a conversation with is, but I think that what it does is it shows that I'm here to support trail runners. I'm here to support elite trail runners. This isn't like purely financial, like is my goal. Like obviously I'm in a business, I want to make money, but I am also here to support pro trail running as a sport. Like I think that that's like you can see that passion for the sport, and then also getting it in the hands of retailers, right? I think in the way that I bought my first vest because the guy said you should get this vest, not the one that I wanted. Retail, it's a recommendation based product. Like you won't buy it because I said you should buy it. You only buy it because Dylan said you should buy it, right? And I think that's what it is for me. It's just gifting and like overall larger awareness. I haven't figured it out yet. Ask me in 6 months.
There's a great, I guess you could call a technique that kind of goes along with seeding. Seeding is basically just gifting it out to people that are influential, right? Called surprise and delight. And I love the idea of surprise and delight when it comes to, yeah, finding people that maybe didn't expect something. And I feel like that resonates so much with everything, whether it's the way you show up at trade shows, whether it's, seeding product to people and everything. It's like you kind of do the unexpected thing that really makes people happy. And to just like randomly give your pack to somebody that yeah, can't publicly run it, but what comes from that, you never know. What if they hand it off to somebody who doesn't have a pack sponsor and that person goes on and wins a huge race wearing it? Like, you just, same thing as before, you could never connect the dots moving forwards, but wouldn't it be funny if that pro handed it to somebody else and then they did something incredible with it? You just never know.
No, like I at Western States this year, I handed the pack to somebody who has another hydration sponsor, and I was just like, I like what you do. Like I like what you do for the sport. I think what you're doing is interesting. Like some people hate it, but like I'm like a big fan, and like I just want you to have the pack. And this person like took that pack, gave it to somebody, and then photographed it. Like it was like, oh, you put it on, and then photographed it, and then posted it, and then that person then tagged me, and that person has a big following, and it was like, and it was just love. Like that was just love. Like I just felt the love. Like that person's like understood that I was like into what they're doing, and they like what I'm doing, and was able to like figure out a way that works within their contractual obligations to support the brand. And I think that like if you come to this with love and passion, and love like in like a non-sexual way, but just like like just a love for this thing that I'm doing and showing up for. I think that's why I win. I win because I show up in a way that like it feels like authenticity is this word that just gets thrown around like all day long. But I think it's that important, that like I'm not like trying to like there's no I give you this vest, I expect something, Like it's
Yeah.
like, no, like I'm here to support you. Like and like if you can support me, that'd be cool.
Yeah. It's so important, man. And I mean, obviously, we talk about it all the time, but business building is so difficult that if you don't actually love what you're doing, you are doomed to fail and to be in enormous amounts of psychological and emotional pain. So you do feel the palpable love that you have for building your business, Tantrums. So before we move to BPC, I'd love to hear sort of like what the future looks like. Right now, you have one sort of hero product, the 6 liter pack, but then you have the hat you're wearing now, the low key banger duffel. Thanks for giving that to me too. You got a sort of just like a cotton branded tee. What does the future look like as it relates to the technical side of the products that you're offering? Because yeah, I mean, you already teased waist belt, higher capacity. It seems like there's a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, directly off the direct horizon is the Row. So the current pack is the Crest 6, and the Rome 11 is Sarah O and Shelby ran it at Cocodona to third and fourth place, and Sarah will be running it this week at the Ure 100. And so that one is, I think it's a little more commercially viable. I think when the normal trail runner walks into a run store, they want a 10 to a 12 liter because you never know what you need, and maybe you need more stuff than you need. And so I think like the bigger packs are a little more commercially viable. So I think this will be a little more friendly for run stores and a little bit less like the sharp edge of like what performance needs or pros are. But I still think I've created a unique product that is a performance 11 liter, 10 liter, or 10 to 11 liter, so 10 to 12 liter, it's 11. And that's what the initial one is. I'm really excited about it. Had great feedback. Moving like beyond that, race belts or something are interesting. Kyle at Raid is like one of my like closest like industry friends, and I always say like I wouldn't make a product like I need to make a product that I think is unique. Kyle has a very unique product, and there's also like the Raid and like sort of Arc'teryx lane, and so there's these two sort of lanes. This like very built up, structured one that Kyle has, this sort of meshy, unstructured ones that exist for naked. And I think if I go into that lane, I would have to have a lane that I could felt ownable. I wouldn't want to draft off of Kyle and his business. Like that's his business, and I don't want to be there. Um, and then also, I really do want to do apparel in my mind. Like apparel has to be stuff that's focused on racing, though. So it's stuff that fits in packbacks. So I think of the UTMB kit as a good starting point. So make all the products that are in the UTMB kit for like, so it's the rain jacket, the mid layer, overpants, and tights. So like because I do want it to be, I do want to be a hydration solution or like pack solution first, and then as that becomes like I look at Arc'teryx as a brand that like they did amazing brand building as being like had this one jacket that was just like the jacket, and they built a brand around it. And I think that's kind of the way, they make everything now, right? Like they make every outdoor like backpacks and I mean, harnesses is their first product, but anything within outdoor. And I think for me, it's like start with the hydration pack, make the best hydration packs on the market, and then build around that product and things that go into it. And eventually, can I do shoes or hat, like, I don't know, helmets or whatever. I don't know, like poles. I'd love to do poles like that. I think that's an interest, another really unique category that is like pretty, it's like there's two brands that make it, and I think there's one that really does it really well and one that does it like okay. That feels like a category that could probably use a little shake up, but who knows?
Lucy, any closing questions before we get to BPC?
I mean, we've talked a lot about the product itself, the way that you've shown up, the way that you built it up to this point, but it has been in market for a little while now. How's the business? How's everything going?
You know, Business is what it is. I think it's like year one is survival. Year one is survival. I've been in the market for 4 months, maybe. I've been delivering vests. Like I did a little pre-shipment, which was shipped in like early May, but that was like 70 vests. Like the bulk vest like landed. The, this is crazy. Like I was supposed to come to the first day of TrailCon, but I couldn't come because my vest landed from Vietnam the morning that day one. Day one, like my hotel was booked to come up on Monday, but I got my product on Tuesday, unpacked it all, shipped out my wholesale orders, filled up with the pickup truck with a bunch of vests, and then hauled my butt up to Tahoe. Then, like, if you were at Tahoe, like my whole whiteboard, I had to sketch out the whole whiteboard. I was up to like 1 o'clock in the morning working on my whiteboard, pass out, wake up, and then like lug my whole thing out there by myself, and then wheel and deal vests all day while giving out tests. So I think it's for me, it's like it's selling. Like people are buying it. I think I've processed 170 orders or something like that. Direct to consumer. I'm in about 8 stores right now. So I'm in 3 countries. I'm in Indonesia. One of the first shops to pick me up was in Indonesia. I'm in this shop in Japan called Trippers, which is incredible. Trippers, WTC. WTRC. It's incredible. If you're in Japan and you're a trail runner, you have to go to Trippers. It's the most incredible shop I've ever been to. And then uh, I'm in Seattle. I don't know, I'm at Flagstaff. I'm in a bunch of different places, and I think the wholesaler retailer business is like that's where my brand gets successful. So picking up new run shops. I just picked up a San Francisco Run Company this morning. I just took that order in. So for me, it's really about like knocking out run stores and then figuring out how to support them so they can sell the product to people that have never heard of it. Right? You walk in and it's Solomon or Tantrums, like I think Solomon gets bought more often than Tantrums just purely because of awareness. And the only way that I can get more awareness within that shop is to support these shops and give them demos that they're running, run demos with their weekly run clubs. Yeah, anyways. I'm doing a run club demo with Run Flagstaff 2 weeks. Anyone in Flagstaff come out?
Sweet, buddy. Well, yeah, the early phase is about survival, and you're clearly surviving. I'm looking at Tripper's website right now, the West Tokyo Running Company. I'm going to stop in here next time I'm in Tokyo for sure. Trail running specialty shop.
Dude, I've never been in a trail running shop. There's so much product in there that you've never seen before, from brands you've never seen. It's all the stuff you have seen, but like think of it like the trail running section of REI, but that's it. And then it's a Japanese flavored.
Yes, amazing.
So good.
Amazing. Sweet. All right, well, let's get to BPC to close things down. Adam, you're our guest. Get us started.
I mean, I'm gonna go the obvious one, but Nike at Western States, the product, the relaunch of ACG, I thought it was just and like Caleb won and Drew Holman won Lavaredo 80K. Like so many things that were planned and unplanned came together. Just earned media, like just I feel like any other brand that was there had to feel like just shot through the heart as they just saw this product that just absolutely like felt like technology, like cut through the noise and was unique. And then you put it on the top of the podium, you put it on top of another podium, and like you had like the whole, like everyone wearing it, all the Pacers wearing it. It just felt like just, oh, just a huge success for Nike and a really interesting thing as you see them sort of bring ACG into their trail offering. I don't know.
Yeah, very good contribution and well said. Lutzi, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm actually going to shout out another podcast. I recently got onto this new pod. It's not new. It's an existing pod called Acquired, which is basically this super deep dive into all these brands, mostly in the technology space. But it feels like it's like half podcast, half audiobook. It's two friends riffing about, companies and how they've gone through these different phases, and just the anecdotes, the detail, the stories that you've never heard before about these super recognizable companies. I just find myself locked in for, and they're long too. They're a couple hours long at minimum, but wow. I don't know how I never stumbled on that one before, but highly recommended.
Definitely listen to the Starbucks episode with Howard Schultz.
I'll put it in the queue. I just made it through Google and Meta, which that was like 8 or 9 hours of my life, but I'll add Starbucks in.
Yeah. Ethereum's a good one too, for those who are into esoteric things like that. Cool. Well, I'll close us down here. I've got two just quick ones. Number one, I just read this book while I've been on the road for the last couple of weeks, Win the Inside Game by Steve Magnus. Really, really good read. As Lutzi and I have talked about here on the pod, I'm trying to read less business content and focus my reading time more on personal development, and this was part of that. And then where I am doing a lot of business consumption, as usual, is in the podcast format. And as I've shouted out a million times in BPC, Invest Like the Best Patrick O'Shaughnessy, I think, is the greatest podcast host on the planet. And he did an episode, I think it was last week or the week before, with Jens Greed, the CEO of Skims. I don't know if either of you guys have listened to this one yet, but it's well worth 90 minutes of your time. Talk about, something that we explore on the podcast all the time, Kim Kardashian, the power that she has just through her name and influence to grow Skims into $1 billion brand in 5 years. It's like ridiculous, the just velocity that they've grown at. And Jens is, it seems like, kind of the operational force behind this business, where Kim is more the public face. Anyway, he has one cool heuristic in the podcast that I think you guys will dig, which is just, wouldn't it be cool if ... And that's like a better indicator of what's going to be successful in the market than any deep spreadsheet analysis that has, math and forecasts attached to it. It's more about just like, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And that is, following that instinct, I think, is something we can all probably do a little bit better. And, letting that be the guiding light rather than, the more measurable things, just the internal feeling of, oh, that would be cool if we did this. Anyway, those are my two: win the inside game and invest like the best with Jens Greed, the CEO of Skims.
Awesome.
All right, Adam, congratulations on what you've built with Tantrums so far, man. Sky is the limit. It's great to have you on Second Nature.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. This is awesome.